Good evening. It's very nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. Welcome to tonight's presentation, How Artificial Light at Night Impacts the Environment and Human Health. I'm Sherry Latash, and along with Mary Monday, who's passing out raffle tickets there in the back, we are the founders of Greener Glenview. Tonight's presentation is the first of a three-part series entitled Hidden in Plain Sight: How Noise, Artificial Light, and Traffic Impact the Environment and Human Health. This series is funded by a Judy Beck grant, and we thank the Beck, Hervis, and Strauss families for recognizing the importance of these issues. Before we start, we have a few announcements. First, you received a raffle ticket when you entered. At the end of the program, we will announce the winner of this recently translated book, The Darkness Manifesto. It is a collection of short essays on light pollution, night ecology, and the ancient rhythms that sustain life. Second, please complete the sheets on your chair and turn them in when you leave. If you would like to learn more about this topic and how Glenview's lighting ordinance and appearance code and design guidelines mitigate light pollution, please indicate that on the sheet. Finally, we ask that you hold your questions until the end, unless you need clarification of something presented. With that, we'll get started. Bob Sullivan is a visual resource consultant, recently retired from Argonne National Laboratory's Environmental Science Division. With degrees in agriculture and landscape architecture, Bob has conducted visual resource studies and impact analyses for the Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service, and the U.S. Forest Service. He has authored more than 120 scientific publications on topics including visual resources, public involvement, scientific visualization, geospatial data analysis, and climate change. He was co-author and editor of the award-winning book, The Renewable Energy Landscape: Preserving Scenic Values in Our Sustainable Future. The focus of his current book, currently in press for the Bureau of Land Management, is on best management practices for reducing environmental impacts of artificial light at night. Please join me in welcoming Bob Sullivan.
Thank you, Sherry. And can everyone hear me pretty well? Okay, is that better? So, thank you all for coming tonight. I have a fair number of slides, so I'm going to get going. So what I would like you to come away from this talk tonight is an understanding, first an acronym, ALAN, Artificial Lighting at Night. I would like you to understand what light pollution is and some basics about the different kinds of light pollution there are. How light pollution is harmful to human health and to ecosystems, which is the majority of what I'll be talking about. And then at the end, simple steps that you can take to help reduce the impacts of ALAN, or light pollution. So why are we talking about this now and why here? So there has been increasing amounts of research in the last 20 years or so to really explore what the impacts of artificial lighting at night are on animal and human health, and more broadly on ecosystems in general. And so we know that light pollution is definitely affecting animal and human health, and that it also disrupts animal behavior. We know that we are undergoing very severe declines in both birds and insects, among other things, but those two really standing out. And about 80% of Americans can no longer see the Milky Way from their homes, and if you live around here, you can generally only see a few stars when you go out at night. And then on top of that, we're facing a climate crisis, and we're wasting a tremendous amount of energy, some of which is coming from fossil fuel resources. So we are contributing through our use of lighting, especially wasted lighting, to climate change. And then finally, we have here in this city, this metro area has, depending on who you talk to, the worst light pollution in the country. So it is, you are on the front lines. And then finally, we're coming up to the season where people are going to start turning their outdoor lights on. So this is timely, I hope. So I want to take a minute and talk about why we should be paying a lot more attention to night skies and natural darkness, okay? First of all, and again, the first two topics here, ecological value and health importance, are what I'm mostly going to talk about. But my background is really in aesthetics and wilderness studies, also some cultural resource, okay? And so night skies and darkness figure into our history, into our culture, and into many other cultures as well, where they have more importance to those cultures than to most Americans. There's actually a lot of recreation that takes place at night, and it's worth several $1 billion just in astrotourism, another thing you can't really do around here anymore. It has value for astronomers, of course, and surprisingly, the armed forces need darkness for night fighting training. And all of this adds up to a lot of economic value. So, what is ALAN? Okay, ALAN is any artificial lighting at night. So we are not talking about the sun and moon and stars and Milky Way. Those are natural sources of light. And we're not talking about lighting in the day. Specifically, we're looking at lighting at night. And this talk, and it matters because some of the health aspects of this, we're talking about outdoor lighting rather than indoor lighting, though I won't mention that. Indoor lighting is definitely a health problem. Outdoor lighting is, but it's not as well known how much of a problem it is. So what is light pollution? It's pretty simple. It's anytime you have ALAN that you don't want, that is artificial lighting, is lighting someplace where it isn't serving any purpose, or it is causing annoyance, or it is causing harm to wildlife, or what have you. Typically, it's excessive lighting. That's one possibility. It is shining in the wrong place, or it's bothering someone or some other organism. And as I mentioned before, often it's wasted light that isn't really reaching its intended target. There are 4 types: sky glow, light trespass, glare, and light clutter and over-illumination, and I have a slide for each one. You see them all here, okay? Sky glow is the overall brightening of the night sky. That is why you can only see 10 stars here when you walk out your door. That is reflected light that is scattered onto particles, clouds, or other particles in the air and cast an overall kind of lightning, sometimes colored depending on the light sources, into the night sky. That is, sky glow is what makes it very difficult for astronomers to conduct their work, whether they're professionals or amateurs. It is a problem, of course, for people to just enjoy the stars, but it also, birds, when they migrate, are at least partly dependent on being able to see objects in the heavens, and surprisingly, dung beetles, but I don't have time to go into that very interesting story. So there are animals that depend on the stars, and the Milky Way in the case of the dung beetle. So light trespass is another kind of light pollution. So if you have lighting going into your bedroom when you're trying to sleep, or into your backyard when you're trying to sit out there, that's an example of light trespass. Now, it's more than that. It would be also just being able to see lights, even though they're not shining on your property or where you are, in a place where you don't want them. So if I'm in a wilderness area and I'm trying to experience lands untouched by humankind and I can see lights, that's not what I should be seeing. Okay, so I mentioned that. Okay, so it is light trespass that causes annoyance to most people when they're suffering from it, but it can also cause sleep disruption and other health effects. For humans, it has health and other impacts on animals. Glare is something you can experience at night, and we all experience it during the day when we're driving. That is when it's not really so much a feature of the light as a feature of the receptor. So I see a lot of us here are getting on in years, so I'm sure we have all noticed, or many of us have noticed, that we're having more trouble seeing when we're driving at night, particularly with the new bluish headlights. That is because your threshold of glare tolerance decreases as you age. Okay? It's also why we turn off our high beams when somebody's coming, because it creates a safety hazard. Your ability to see clearly is very much affected by glare. Light clutter and over-illumination is just having a bunch of different lights in the area that you are looking, and they cause an aesthetic problem, of course. They can be distracting if you're trying to drive or otherwise navigate, and often they're a great example of wasted light. If you look particularly at the bottom of these two pictures, now that is an industrial area, so they need lighting for safety, but this is very obviously overlighted. There's much more light than they need, and a lot of it is going off site. So, light pollution, that is bad Allen or artificial lighting, obscures our view of the night sky and it diminishes natural darkness. So some people use the terms astronomical light pollution and ecological light pollution. For the most part, astronomical light pollution is when light pollution makes it hard to see celestial bodies. And it's really what drives what I would call social impacts to humans, the loss of culture, loss of enjoyment of the night sky. However, knowing that some animals use the night sky for navigation, it's not 100% just social impacts to humans. Far more problematic for other organisms is ecological light pollution. That is simply the loss of natural, what is called natural darkness, the darkness that would occur in the absence of artificial lighting. It is a cause of health effects to humans and many difficulties for other kinds of organisms, really most other organisms. Okay, so this is there is a satellite that has twice circled the Earth and mapped out by very complicated means, in essence, what is the darkness of the night sky. So this is the US, and where it is black, which is almost exclusively west of the Mississippi, it is very close to natural darkness. Where it is white is the other extreme, and it can be several thousand times brighter than it is in the areas that it's dark. So basically, if you want to see clear night skies and you live here, you're talking about driving a long way, hundreds of miles. And I want to take, in case I forget, I want to say I grew up in East Wilmette. and I was a young astronomer back in the day. And in the early 1970s, I could go in my backyard and see the Milky Way at night, faintly. If anybody growing up in Glenview now, they will never, probably, there is a good chance no one will ever see that again. So, I just talked about a social impact of light pollution, okay? It affects me. I am sad to know that I can't see that anymore. And I'm sad for you, and I'm even more sad for your children. So there is a personal loss of connection to the night sky and the spiritual value that that brings when you look up and you understand just how insignificant you are and everything that's ever happened. And everything that will happen happens on one dot. And you can't really appreciate that until you see thousands of stars and the few galaxies you can see with the naked eye. We are losing part of our history that way, and a number of other cultures are actually losing their folklore. They're losing parts of stuff that's far more important to them than this stuff is to most of us. I have a picture, that bottom picture is from Chaco Canyon, and that is believed to be the recording from 1054 of a supernova that occurred at that time, okay? And they figured out the moon was a crescent moon. Now, they don't know that for sure, okay? But to go to Chaco Canyon and know that they were looking at that, and they thought it was significant enough to mark it there, and to be able to go and see that. And the rest of Chaco Canyon, boy, if you can go see it, you need to. A lot of it is set up for archaeoastronomy. And you lose that if you can't see those stars. Fortunately, it is a night sky sanctuary. It's threatened by oil and gas development. So we have obviously the loss of aesthetics. It is a problem if you're in a wilderness area. It interferes with nighttime recreation. Because in the West, they make a lot of money off astrotourism. People go out there, they spend a week out there, they're staying in hotels. It's a lot of money. Astronomers are up the creek when they have to abandon their observatories, and that's happened all over the country, and have to go to Chile and build an observatory way out in the desert that costs a fortune.